Channel 3 News at 6.
I therefore find that his initial decision to use force was constitutionally reasonable. I therefore also find the defendant not guilty of felonious assault.
We are elated. We are nonetheless respectful and mindful, but you have to forgive us because this has been a blood fight.
No racist! No peace! No justice! No peace!
I do not believe that Tim and Melissa ever used their car as a weapon. I do not believe that they ever had a gun.
Good evening and welcome to Channel 3 News at 6. You are looking at video taken about an hour ago of the West Shoreway protesters reacting to the news of the not guilty verdict for Michael Brelo today. And we have team coverage of every angle of today's verdict, including a look ahead at what's next for the city and for Brelo himself. But we begin tonight with those protests that have been largely peaceful today. They began directly following the verdict. And we want to go live now as you're looking downtown Cleveland, just outside the Justice Center. This group began here right as the verdict was read, marched sometimes on the West Shoreway to Cadell Recreation Center, and then about an hour ago began their loop back to downtown. As you can see them, a group of several dozen. The size of that group has ebbed and flowed throughout the afternoon. Will Ewick has been following the protesters all afternoon. He joins us live. Hi, Will.
Yeah, good evening, Chris. This is as far as we got here on West 25th. We were headed down following the protesters from the Cadell Rec Center to downtown, but a lot of barricades, a lot of backed up traffic, a lot of roadblocks. There was a police barricade actually right behind us that is now since removed as they head back downtown. They started their day, however, way over in West Park. That's where they were at the Impet Park. They had a mock funeral for Tamir Rice, carried a small casket with a picture of Tamir onto the footsteps of the house of Timothy McGinty, the Cuyahoga County prosecutor. They then moved to Cadell Rec Center, where Tamir Rice was shot and killed about 6 months ago. People shared their thoughts and opinions while holding signs and chanting, and then a group was shortly joined by about 100 more protesters that walked up Detroit Avenue, one by one, going to a microphone and demanding justice. That group then left and went back down to the Shoreway, Detroit. Their message today was that a mistake was made in the Brelo verdict. Don't make that same mistake with Tamir Rice.
If you do the same injustice that you did in that courtroom today with the Tamir Rice case, you ain't seen nothing yet. But we're here for a continuation of justice. That's what we're here for.
Chris, I have to reiterate, I was at Impet Park, I was at Cadell Rec Center, I've been following the protesters now as they trek back to downtown. Everything has been completely peaceful so far. A lot of talking, a lot of chanting, songs, some solemn occasions, but everything completely peaceful. One protester did tell me, which I think was about the line of the day, the death of Tamir Rice was a tragedy, and you don't solve a tragedy with another tragedy, and that's what violence would be. Live here on the west side of Cleveland, Will Ewick, Channel 3 News.
And we hope that that remains the case throughout the evening. We'll be following it throughout this newscast and throughout the evening. Will, thanks.
I therefore also find the defendant not guilty of felonious assault, the lesser included offense on both indicted counts.
So let's get to the case itself. From the start to the finish, Michael Mara has been covering every aspect from inside the courtroom for us. He was there today as Judge John O'Donnell read the verdict, and he's here now with his analysis of the day. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Chris. It may have been the most dramatic verdict of Judge O'Donnell's career on the common pleas bench, but when it was all over, I don't think it was his toughest case. The evidence just wasn't there, and the prosecution's experts didn't convince the judge beyond a reasonable doubt. So there could only be one verdict: not guilty. Officer Michael Brelo did his best not to look nervous as he walked into court, shaking the hands of sheriff's deputies. He knew his future and his freedom were about to be put on the line. As Judge John O'Donnell began reading the highlights from his 35-page opinion, he walked over to the two mannequins with the bullet wound trajectory rods.
So that wound number 1 is at the top of Russell's head.
At one point, the 31-year-old former Marine began praying and made the sign of the cross as he listened to the verdict. Finally, it became clear.
And therefore find that Brelo's entire use of deadly force was a constitutionally reasonable response to an objectively reasonably perceived threat of great bodily harm from the occupants of the Malibu, Russell, and Williams.
Officer Michael Brelo began to cry as the news sunk in, not guilty of all charges. In a press conference afterwards, Prosecutor Tim McGinty claimed a partial victory.
This tragic experience has already forced a culture change within the Division of Police and a needed re-examination of the use of deadly force.
And we stood tall, we stood firm, because we didn't do anything illegal, we didn't do anything wrong, and I'll be damned if I was going to let any bully push us around.
Pat D'Angelo, Brelo's lead defense attorney, still furious with the county prosecutor.
I've never in my 37 years witnessed such an unprofessional and vicious prosecution of a police officer. He is not an organized crime figure. He is not a drug dealer. He's not a rapist, and he's not a murderer.
It's bittersweet. You know, I'm thrilled for Mike Brelo and the men and women of the Cleveland Police Department. And our hearts go out to the families.
Michael Brelo avoided reporters, but walked out of that courtroom a free man. County Prosecutor Tim McGinney said that even though his team lost the case, that the people of Cuyahoga County would be the winners. He said in the future, the body cams and the dash cameras would become the unblinking, credible eyewitnesses to all that happens with the police and the citizens when they interact. But the bottom line today, Officer Michael Brelo, not guilty. And Chris, we've been told he's going on vacation with his entire family.
So we won't be hearing from him anytime soon. Mike, there's one point here. The court released why they decided Saturday morning. It's because they felt downtown would be less crowded? Is that the thought process
Absolutely.
here?
Holiday weekend, nobody was going to be downtown. And as we've seen so far, it's really been minimal. This is, for all that we could have with this case, I think almost a non-issue so far. Let's hope it stays that way.
Absolutely, we do. Mike, thanks so much from tonight and all the way through this case. So let's go about and talk about what's next for this police officer and the case surrounding the chase. Well, there are three possibilities. First, Officer Brelo could be fired by the Cleveland Police Department for violating rules. Second, 5 Cleveland Police Department supervisors will go on trial for negligent supervision of the chase. Third, the U.S. Justice Department Civil Rights Division could bring suit against Officer Brelo. So a lot still to potentially happen here. Mayor Frank Jackson calls this a defining moment for his city as reaction to the emotional verdict pours in. The mayor chose his words very carefully, but sounded troubled. Listen.
The charge that was presented to the judge was one that was difficult to prove. It is difficult to accept just a legal definition or a legal analysis of something and say that that should be the end of it. I'm the mayor, so I will maintain a mayoral posture in regards to whether or not I'm disappointed or not. I think I've pretty well explained my sentiments, and you can interpret that.
Reading between the lines there, the mayor and Police Chief Calvin Williams there stressed Brelo and 13 other officers will face discipline, as we outlined, for alleged violations of police rules. For extended coverage of the verdict today, head over to our website, WKYC.com. There you'll find extensive team coverage, including a look back at each day of the trial and then the final verdict that came this morning.
But this right here is beyond crazy. Not guilty for murder? This is murder!
Just ahead, emotional reaction from family members of Melissa Williams and Timothy Russell following today's verdict. We'll take you back downtown. And peaceful march. Protesters take to the streets on the west side for 12-year-old Tamir Rice today. Welcome back. We're continuing to follow live breaking news as protesters continue marching through downtown Cleveland today. This, of course, in reaction to the Michael Brelo not guilty verdict that came down this morning. This is a group that is circling the Justice Center. You see it on the right side of your screen there. They started downtown, moved to the west side, Cadell Park, then circled back about an hour ago. Downtown Cleveland congested, as you see from the land and now from the air. You can see them there with the Justice Center in the foreground. We'll keep our eye on that and let you know as anything new develops, but so far incredibly peaceful the day the verdict came down. And this verdict falls on the 6-month anniversary of the death of Tamir Rice. His family continues to seek justice, and today they gathered with protesters in West Park to make their voices heard. Channel 3's Alyssa Raymond was there and takes us to that neighborhood that remained peaceful throughout the day.
In the neighborhood surrounding Impet Park, protesters march for Tamir Rice.
I am in disbelief that all these people showed up in support of my family.
LaTanya Goldsby says she wants to keep her cousin's name, Tamir Rice, in the public eye.
We wanted to bring this directly to his doorfront and let him know that we are looking for justice in this case and we want charges filed.
Protesters marched to Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Tim McGinty's home carrying a small black coffin. Along the way, neighbors watched.
I disagree with what they're doing, but it's peaceful. That's why I came out to watch it.
I have no problem with the protest. I just don't want no damage.
And as hundreds calmly walked the streets, some didn't even utter a word about a message they want heard.
If I had the opportunity to speak to Tamir, I would just tell him that I love him and that I'm going to continue to fight for justice for him.
Alyssa Raymond, Channel 3 News.
Alyssa, thanks very much. Downtown, as the Brelo verdict was read, protesters lined Lakeside to once again peacefully make their point. Channel 3's Dawn Kendrick is now with us about how this all went down today. Hi, Dawn.
Hi. No mistaking, Chris. There was disbelief and disappointment, anger and angst, but peace prevailed today, and Cleveland set an example, I think, to be proud of. The verdict read inside the calm of the courtroom met with anger and unmistakable angst outside. Melissa Williams' cousin melts down.
Because this right here is beyond crazy. Not guilty for murder? This is murder!
Oh, they was on cocaine. Okay. But do they make you to kill them like that?
When protesters saw defense attorney Pat D'Angelo, they swarmed him and stormed the courthouse steps. Inside those courthouse doors, the sheriff's department geared up for what was coming in.
You better go in and hide. Justice don't be. Racist police.
Police stood their ground, and a peaceful protest by all accounts unfolded on Lakeside.
We gonna mourn, cry, but we can't bring her back. But you know, to be honest, I'm glad they not tearing up the town. I'm glad that, that Baltimore.
And with that voice of reason, Melissa Williams' cousin speaks for the protesters who showed up and spoke up on behalf of Melissa and Timothy Russell. More reaction tonight on Channel 3 News at 11. I'm Dawn Kendrick. Back to you.
And Dawn, the reaction and the contrast between the emotion we saw, and then she seems so put together. You have to put yourself in her shoes, and an amazing Saturday.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was so amazed. I told her that calm voice of reason out of what we saw earlier. It was like an amazing transformation. I only hope that we continue that vibe in this city.
Absolutely, Dawn. Thanks so much. Now, Timothy Russell's family also at the heart of this case, and today announced their displeasure with the verdict. 7 family members, as you see them here walking in, and their attorney, Paul Cristallo, spoke for about 90 minutes after the verdict was read of their disbelief with the decision. They weren't surprised, but they did expect Brelo to face some type of accountability. Listen.
Is that while Judge O'Donnell ruled that Officer Brelo was not guilty, that is far from innocent. Fleeing and eluding doesn't get you the death penalty.
As a community, we have to come together and use wisdom and knowledge. We have to organize and try to figure out a way to stop this from happening ever again.
The family also appealed for peaceful demonstrations by the community, which we are seeing, saying Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams were peaceful people and would not want any violence in their name. Next for us, we're going to turn our attention to the weather. Another cold evening, potentially. You're looking live inside Progressive Field. A stunningly beautiful Saturday and a baseball game. What a way to spend it. Bruce tells us what Sunday looks like next. When you close your eyes and think late spring in Cleveland, this is the day you have in mind.
This is a perfect day. Low humidity, comfortable temperatures, light breeze, blue sky, beautiful. We'll see if we can improve on it a little bit tomorrow. The numbers for today were...
Okay, thanks, Bruce. Coming up next for us, LeBron James weighs in on today's verdict in this trial that we've been covering. And tomorrow's Game 3, he'll weigh in on that too when we come back.
Chris, back to you.
Okay, Al, thanks very much. We want to take one final look before we say goodnight to the protesters who are out in downtown Cleveland. So far today, it has been entirely peaceful. And if we can take a look at those pictures of how folks are working out downtown there, this is just outside of the Terminal Tower. We were told a few moments ago they went inside Tower City. They have now left it. They started downtown after the verdict in the Michael Brelo case, marched west to Cadell Park, and now back into downtown Cleveland. So far, it has been an incredibly peaceful day. We hope it will remain a peaceful night. Channel 3 crews are fanned out throughout the city. We'll be keeping eyes and tabs on this throughout the evening, updating for you at WKYC.com and on our social media sites, Twitter and Facebook. From the air and from the ground, we have you covered. Thanks very much for being with us here at 6 o'clock. We'll see you back here at 11.
Thanks for watching Channel 3 News.